Welcome one, welcome all. It's Chris McCleary with another CIRF report. I'm sure of it. I'm sure that, man, I'm going to have to guess that everybody's already feeling this energy that I'm about ready to present today. A lot of Mercury in here, a lot of stuff happening just like last time. It's unprecedented, the level of changes that are in the sky. And there's a lot to show for the influence. So just for those of you who are new, we're looking for the influence, the one single influence that all of us have a chance of feeling. And we're basing that off of a triangulation of different aspects. And then once we have the influence, I'll show you the main solution. We're going to triangulate for that as well. We have one main solution. And so that's towards the end. So let's go ahead and get started with summary slide. May 14th to May 20th is what we're looking at. We have quadruple retrograde happening. We have Venus square Neptune still. We have Sun square Mars. I mean, there's some critical squares in there. We're going to talk about this when we get to our daily section because there's just so much in here, including the Sun switching signs into Gemini towards the end. All right, but because the main energies, including Sun and Gemini, and we have a bunch of stuff with Mercury, it's going to be a lot of mental discord in the astrology. Then we go over to the dream bot. This is the collective unconscious, and we're going to start our session there when we get started. But the dream bot looks like it's in love and war, but war is the big meme here in the collective unconscious. And we have a little note here. Is this a false flag alert? And we'll get into that later. The I-Ching then is hexagram 21. It's called Cutting Through. And this is the blue circle inside of the astrology. It is, you're just going to have to bite the bullet, basically. That's the influence. So it's all very well triangulated either into confrontation or agitation or both connected together. And there's this element of deceit and corruption in both the astrology and the I-Ching. We'll get into all that, but be looking for a pretty high congruency score, nice little overlap. The only thing that's kind of hanging out here is the love aspect. Now, of course, there is some love with Venus in the astrology, but Venus also is kind of squared, and in retrograde. So I kind of temper that. All right, let's do our intro and we'll get started with the dream bot next. And as promised, we have the dream bot. This is the collective dreams. And down here at the bottom, we have the memes: war, death, fear in the red, and love, family, and group in the blue. I also have some linguistics to offer you, which indicate with the linguistics some possible future events to look out for. And one of those is false flag, ? So let's start with the linguistics. Number 1, crowd, kill, dead, band, fear. Wow. All in the first salvo of words at the very top. That doesn't look very good. It almost looks like maybe the first place that allows a large gathering might be a prime spot for a false flag. Keep in mind, too, that we're still coming off, or we still have, at the very end of last CIRF report, we have the Sun square Mars aspect. It was basically just a spark waiting to happen, and boom, an all-out just conflict is looming just from that energy. And we'll get into that later, but we still have that, and that's showing up here. Hopefully that's all this is that astrological conflict in the collective dreams. That's not unusual, by the way. In fact, it happens all the time. Linguistic set number 2, flu starts suddenly. And the flu here, dreams can be metaphoric, so it's kind of ironic that the flu might start. I don't know. But I also, I chose flu because, in war we have planes and helicopters, things that are flying. And so maybe that starts suddenly. What does that sound like? Sounds like a little bit of Uranus in there, or Pluto. All right, linguistic set number 3, family updated, little become war. And the reason why I put this one in brackets is because I'm thinking that we're seeing evidence all over the globe of even families being divided by these two sides. And we'll get into that when we get into the astrology, because I don't want to waste your time here. But even families are becoming little wars. And that's what this linguistics is saying. So the red arrows is continuing down that. I already read the first set of arrows, which is every single word in that linguistics, plus eye of the hurricane, eye of the storm, flu starts, war, scared. So there's a lot of fear in there, a lot of death, and a lot of war. So go figure. Hopefully that's just the astrological influence, but also the blue arrows, band together, love, brother. So families in there, follow and thank. So anyway, love and war. That's where we're at, with the emphasis on, unfortunately, war. Let's get into the astrology. Oh, there's so much. I'm going to try to be quick with this. So first off, let's get our pencil out here, highlighter. And what we're looking at is that leftover from the last CIRF report is still important now. We have basically 4 planets in retrograde, and we'll get into that when I show you the diagram. And then you have the sun towards the end of the week going into Gemini. The ego becomes more adaptable. Like, that's the biggest transition from Taurus. But, early on, it's going to be important to know that the sun is still in Taurus at the start of the week. And so that's bullheaded, and that bullheaded ego could get us into problems. I'll cover that here in a second. The biggest thing about this, this junk here in the middle, is it's pretty much all Mercury. Mercury with a trine, Mercury with several of these sesquisquares, and those kind of promote agitation. And then we have, towards the end of the week, Mercury conjunct Venus, as Venus is going retrograde and Venus is going direct. Mercury going to direct. They're going to meet in the middle. All right, and that's happening there. So let's get started with Thursday. I want to get started with the sun because I passed that off earlier. Sun still in Taurus. And as you recall, bullheaded ego thinks that he gets very egotistical, gets very stuck, is not very adaptable to new ideas. And so that is squared off to Mars, and Mars is now in Pisces. So what that means is can get very idealistic. And we even talked about the martyr, because Pisces is kind of a spiritual concept or a spiritual influence. So we've got a spiritually idealistic Mars warrior. And it sounds almost like a martyr or like a suicide bomber kind of thing. It's that type of energy. I'm not calling for a suicide bomber, but that's kind of the energy of Mars and Pisces. So that's all squared off to this bullheaded ego. And with the square in the middle, we're producing conflict. We're producing more obstacles. It's just not flowing. And so they butt heads against each other. That's what bulls do, is butt heads. And so that's where a bunch of this agitation is coming from. But there's much more agitation, as you'll see. Second of all, you've got 3 retrogrades here. Now it's the latest one is Saturn, and where all 3 pairs of these are conjunct and going retrograde. The last time we saw Pluto retrograde in Capricorn was the Revolutionary War time period. Now the sun also has these trines over to this. So what we've been looking at is Pluto being the inner power and the death and rebirth. We have Jupiter being expansive and deep philosopher and wise. So wise transformation of government. Saturn being government and discipline and the way things are. Well, it's all in retrograde. So we could be returning to an old period of time, an old government, a death and rebirth into the old, or revisiting an old type of government. Wouldn't that be pretty cool? Where it is that we have a nationalized Federal Reserve, a nationalized central bank, that would be a great start. You know how many presidents had to endure a private central bank? And the ones who opposed it ended up dead. So this could be our first president that doesn't end up dead, that successfully gets rid of private central banking. That would be wonderful, a great start. Let's see, what else did I forget? Let's see, there's one more thing. Oh, deceit. And deceit's going to show up with this hidden hand, and I'm going to call that Pluto. And especially with Pluto in retrograde, Pluto in and of itself and Scorpio can infer that deep inner hidden power, that secret power. And so when you reveal that in a retrograde, this could be a revealing of conspiracy, a revealing of deceit, corruption, that kind of thing. That would be this. And it's sun, so sun shining, sun aware, is easily shining light on that deceit. So look for that. I think that would be a great thing in today's deceptive world, especially with all the misinformation. Not a whole lot of change between Thursday and Friday the 15th. So we'll continue. We get into Saturday, and now we're starting to see some aspects with, now Venus is retrograde. Did I miss that retrograde? Yep, I missed that retrograde. Okay, so Venus, if you notice here, is now retrograde on the 15th. That is a big change, actually. She's stationed, which means that apparent to Earth, she is kind of stalled for a few hours, a day-ish. And in that period, that's extra strength. It's kind of a pause. That energy in Gemini, Venus in Gemini, is kind of stopped. It's halted. So all that energy with the closer, Venus is one of those closer planets. So that extra energy is going to be putting more harmony into the mix. And it's in Gemini, so it is, it's going to be more of communication and logical thinking. So there's a beauty in this logic. There's a beauty in this communication, this ability to communicate. But unfortunately, she is blocked. She's blocked from dreams, from insight, from connectedness. That's kind of ironic, but that's what Neptune exists in. So it's kind of hard to see some beautiful dreams there. And this is going to last probably for another week or so as Venus starts to move backward towards Mercury and then the Sun. As Venus gets along further, we're going to start to see Mercury and Venus colliding. And then Venus with retrograde, we might have some history repeating, if you will, in terms of relationship or romance, or returning to lessons learned, and in finance might be in here as well. Having to reassess or judge yourself based on past expenses or financial decisions. You might have to revisit those as well. And you need to be watching what you say, because it might be naturally coming out of your communication, which is Gemini. And plus, as this gets closer and closer to Mercury, remember, is in home of Gemini, rules Gemini. And so Venus is going to have to be playing by the rules of Mercury. And so things do have to be logical. Things do have to be rational and adaptable. And so that is, these two actually work out really well together. But still, both of those are going to be squared off to Neptune and our Pisces influenced Neptune. Meanwhile, we have Mercury square Pluto, and that symbol right there is 135 degrees. So I don't have it put in our charts. That just makes it way too complicated and messy, but it's very important in this case because we have Mercury starting to 135 degree every one of these, Pluto, then Jupiter, then Saturn. So today is powerful. This is Saturday the 16th. Powerful thoughts, that's the Pluto, are agitated. So thoughts get agitated around maybe some deceit, maybe some concealed hidden hand that is now out in the open, okay? And that's going to agitate thoughts. Then we get into Sunday, and now Mercury's making that same aspect to Jupiter. So thoughts of higher wisdom produce agitation, or thoughts about deeper philosophy or optimism might even create agitation. If you're trying to think positive, it might actually produce agitation. And as you're going to see in the solution, a little bit of a spoiler alert, we're trying to be a little bit more real, but instead of just being positive, and it'll turn out positive if you do that. All right. And then on Monday, we have colliding, and within the conjunct 8-degree orb, we have Mercury and Venus in retrograde kind of meeting up together. And when this happens, you're going to have a stronger sensation of thoughts that are harmonizing or beautiful rational thought, that sort of thing. And it's going to get stronger and stronger until those go exact. And it won't be this week. But we also have Mercury sesquisquare Saturn. So government produces agitation in your thoughts. Thoughts about government produce agitation. Wonderful. That's happening already, isn't it? All right. On Tuesday, we're going to see even closer conjunct. They're going to get tighter, Mercury and Venus. Plus we have the moon with a triple square. And so this is, the emotions are conflicted now with the powerful transformation of government, all going in reverse. That'll be a quickie that day. That's on Tuesday. Your emotions are going to be conflicted. See, this just lots and lots of conflicts. So these positive Venus, beautiful harmony aspects kind of get occluded by all that agitation. Then finally on Wednesday, Mercury and Venus still are about 3 degrees away, but Sun now goes into Gemini. And this is huge now because we already had a strengthening form of beautiful logic, thought, and rational. Now the Sun, the ego, finally starts to be a lot more adaptable. And that's what Gemini is. Instead of steadfast and bullheaded Taurus, the Sun now feels adaptable, more agile, and can maybe be more curious and learning. So we've got learning and logic, and we got 3 of these major planets here with the emphasis on, well, with a flavor of more beauty and love. So you got the arts and logic together, science and logic. That's a pretty cool thing. And that's fairly positive, even with those squares there, because that's Neptune. So as long as we're not trying to combine our fantasy and our dreams and just staying in rational thought, should be fairly adaptable and beautiful and harmonious. All right. And then I have a little link here that says the last time Pluto transited Capricorn was 1762 to 1777, the time of the American Revolution and the onset of the Industrial Revolution. All right, folks, here's the I-Ching reading. We're still in the influence. When I toss the coins out, we got hexagram 21 with 1 change line at the bottom. Now, I also decided to toss the coins one last time for the strength, and it came out 8, and that really means 3 out of 4. So not the full strength, but a very strong amount, as you're going to feel 21. Cutting through. It's fire over thunder, which means current circumstances call for confronting a thorny situation and cutting through it. Remember, this is the influence, not necessarily the solution. We're going to get to the solution later, but this is the influence. Somehow the way to harmony and unity is blocked or frustrated, perhaps by a tangle of deceit or corruption. Isn't this incredible? Especially with General Flynn and the Russiagate, Obamagate, etc. There appears to be a whole lot of declassified, now deceit and corruption at the highest ranks. Those who bring discipline to bear must, above all, be honest with others and with themselves. Honesty is the hallmark of the strong and self-confident. When lies, delusions, and game playing are getting in the way of teamwork, a swift sword of honest action, perhaps even punishment, must be wielded to protect integrity and values. Decisiveness with integrity will bring good fortune. Decisiveness. This is what the judge is not doing in the case of General Flynn. He's wishy-washy, and he's asking for public opinion on a decision that should be within the judge's purview, and it's not a public opinion. We don't do democracy for judicial decisions. This is unprecedented. In those situations where serious issues of justice are at stake, keep careful records. It's hilarious because there's some lost records that just happen to be associated with this case. And do not hesitate to go public with the truth. Thank you, Assange and WikiLeaks. All right. In the natural world, justice is how the high is brought low so that the low can be lifted up. Biting through is a foundation of impartiality that allows balance to be restored. Harmony must sometimes come without justice. If justice is held to be higher, an impasse will continue. We see how their voices are heard through violent acts of frustration. When opposition emerges, change is already taking place. Going two ways at once describes how you can succeed through a win-win situation where all parties are served. This is the proper definition of negotiation, but it can only be done when both parties are honest. Whenever fireworks or arguments arise, understand that the storm is unearthing assumptions to unblock communication. Its sole purpose is to release the obstruction of illusions, regardless of where they might lead. All right. Now, a little bit more. We have our change line that we have to read, and that is, there's two versions here. The first offense is not cause for condemnation and stiff punishment, but some form of corrective action may be needed in order to prevent further transgressions. If you have been wronged, confront the matter openly, but without hostility. All right, here's the other version. Feet bound and immovable. Learning something for the first time without fault. While attempting to get at the core of the situation, you become stuck. An impasse may be occurring, but with another. Since this is the first time a grievance has occurred, the punishment or response is light. The restriction has the effect of showing you or slowing you down. I don't think that is a perfect match to what's happening here. This has been a long trend of governmental overreach and deceit in the highest ranks. So with that, we are now ready for the solution. So it's time for our sponsor. We'll be back for the solution. Hang on. Be right back. All right, here is the solution. If you put in that single change line, you get fire over earth, which is hexagram 35. This is easy progress. It sounds easy, doesn't it? It's not that easy. In fact, with the influence of agitation and confrontation, it's going to be the hardest to not react. We're going to ask to not react. Here's the I-Ching says about this solution. The situation is one of easy, natural progress. What has been weak is ascending, and by gaining a prominent position will become more powerful. One image here is the light on the rising sun, which at first appears dimly through the mists. But this same light will radiate with powerful clarity once the sun has reached its high position in the sky. So let's get a little bit further down. Beings do not stay in power. To progress without the outward demonstration of force is how you expand outwardly, by activating a power that is sufficient in any situation. This is true enlightenment. Strength is not measured on how you overcome others, but in how you overcome yourself. Those who master others have force. Those who master themselves have strength. Cultivating inner strength, the weak progresses to unprecedented heights in the image of outward expansion. To follow life, you build your foundation by cultivating whatever unique qualities life has given to you. You can then embrace the wondrous things that life brings to nourish your uniqueness. You have the opportunity to bring light to others in their time of darkness. Regardless of the situation, all things are progressing as they should. So we're going to have a trust of your life plan, a trust of your higher self, your deity, the universe, etc. There's a lot of trust there to know that things are progressing even though you can't see them. So in the unchanging line, it says, progress unseen is still progress. Chin unchanging can show a situation that is stable and growing even while you may not see the progress. Much has been developing underground long before the plant opens its leaves to the sun. All right. In general, it is not just sitting around, it's going inward to cultivate the real power, the transcendental power, and trusting that things are progressing. You're just not seeing them yet. That doesn't make things not progressing. All right. Here's the Rave Mandala, which is the middle mandala, and then the outward zodiac is the Sidereal zodiac, the true Sidereal, which includes Ophiuchus. And you can see our summary slide or introduction video to get an explanation for why we use these three zodiacs. So anyway, what we were looking at is the deceit, which is the common ground, the overlap between all three, which is the war and death in the, death in the dream bot. That indicates death and rebirth, which is love and war, which is Pluto. And then we have the deceit and the corruption. That was from the astrology and from the I-Ching. So that overlap is all Pluto, and also Jupiter, and the revealing and deeper wisdom, and the sun shining on both of those. So we have hexagram 61 in the Rave Mandala. We also have Sagittarius for the sidereal solution. The solution is the Sidereal Astrology. So let's talk about hexagram 61. In the Rave. This is the gate of mystery. Inner truth is the pressure to resolve the individual mystery. The head center is not an awareness center. It is a pressure. The knowing center is outside of the collective. The pressure of the unknown and knowable haunts the thinker's mind. Remember, recalling all the Mercury agitation. This is a perfect match. But this is supposed to be the solution. The pressure of the unknown and the knowable haunts the thinker's mind. This is the pressure to know the absolute. So we're going inside to find the truth, and it's the inner truth. It's already inside of you. The potential of inner truth is silence, period. That's the last sentence there. But we have two lines here, line 3, interdependence. It is exceedingly difficult for truth to stand alone. The ability to establish relationships for the actualization of truths. The pressure to know enhanced through collaboration. On the downside of this line, impatience with others and the forsaking of relationships. So interdependence is the key for line 3. It suggests that you're not going to get truth alone. Truth is only going to come when you properly We have, okay, got a control of that. When you properly socialize with your, loved ones or connected others, that's when truth is going to show up according to this rave mandala. And that's kind of the first time that we have any social environment here other than Venus. And Venus is very harmonious and it's in that Gemini influence. So then we have line 5, which is the influence, the pressure to know that may result in influence and wisdom. And let me read the rest of this because this is interesting. The enlightened father figure whose recognized wisdom and powerful assertion can mold a generation by its influence. Who could that be? I'll let you answer that. On the downside of line 5, it's a tendency and power to want to enforce compliance to ensure lasting influence. So I'd like to offer that the presidential team is probably on this positive side and could mold a generation by its influence with all the changes that it's trying to purport. And then I would consider the WHO, Bill Gates, maybe the whole deep state, a tendency and power to want to enforce compliance to ensure lasting influence, the pressure in knowing to resent challenges and demand acceptance. So there it is. We have that same Mars square Sun right here in the Rave Mandala, and it's in both line 3 and 5, but mainly line 5. All right, it is time to get the big solution out to you. This is the solution slide. And here we go. We've got the top here is the triangulation of the influence. You can see the police here. This is confrontation, agitation, mainly mental, but you're going to see a lot of this probably from the outside. We don't predict behaviors and outcomes. We don't know free will. We don't know how people are going to handle this energy. But we know that the energy is pretty much confrontation, agitation, all right? It's a perfect overlap pretty much, very high rated. And then here's the triangulation of the solution. We have from Sidereal, we have Sagittarius. From the Rave Mandala, we had 61. Let's review Rave Mandala. It's about inner truth. This is the pressure to be controlled or influenced by the leaders. And then line 3 was interdependence, offers a higher truth. The Sidereal Sagittarius is all about higher wisdom, exploration, philosophy, optimistic. It's all your Jupiter aspects, adventurous, long distance travel. But this one is going to be inward, long distance inward exploration. That's a Sagittarius. So we're going to use that in our triangulation. And remember from the I-Ching, progressive power of the weak. Develop strength that doesn't have to push and use force. So it's not an outward power, it's an inward power. Grow that confidence. Get into the flow of nature for maximum power. Trust the seeds sprout and grow before evidence pops through the soil. Progress unseen is still progress. All right, here we go. Here's the overall triangulation for the influence. Overall triangulation between Sidereal, Rave Mandala, and the I-Ching. Max power, strength, truth, wisdom is deep inside. Follow the natural flow of life, cultivating your unique qualities. Optimistically adventure inward. Trust the progress that is unseen. All right, final slide here is our astrology slide. I know it might be a little bit small, so let's zoom in for you. This will be our last slide so that you can come back to refer to this last slide here. And it includes all the Mercury aspects, the agitation, the Cessa squares, and it includes the sun going into Gemini. But basically thoughts are a little bit all over the place. On the one hand, they're harmonious with the impending conjunction with Venus. But on the other hand, we've got these 135-degree agitation aspects, and then we have some other squares and whatnot. So, all right, focus. There's a lot of fear out there. It's showing up in the dreams. Go inward, go curious, trust your higher beingness that things are progressing. It's just you may not be seeing it. Some of you might be seeing some progress. That's good, but progress is happening. We are not in a formulation of disintegration. The influence might feel like it. It feels agitating, but trust your inside. Trust your higher power if you have one, but go inside curiously and figure out your unique qualities and foster those. That will be your power, right? And that'll probably be used in the next CIRF report, but we'll see you next week. Thanks, everybody.